I think that if you want to compare me to that, I mean, there's no comparison, because look, I think that you can get any KKK, Klansman, or any white Aryan bigot to say, look, I'm just being honest, It doesn't make them right. And there are a lot of people in this world that have suffered because of racist ideas, And so it's not just a matter of like, oh, I mean, my own ideas are, in some ways, they're not to be compared with those, because I think that they're not saying live and let live. Basically, if they say they have no use for, they're saying I have no use for a certain type of person, that's fine, but then they characterize them as inferior people. They give sort of fuel, they sort of fuel the idea that some people are worth mistreating, that it's okay to mistreat some people. Because and it's just out of ignorance, all right? I mean, I'd have to tell them if I met them, it's a really ignorant thing to say. Ignorant of this human suffering that goes on in this world. And you don't need, I don't know.
I think that's a, like I said, trying to get to a point here. Let's just go on to the next stage here. So
okay.
you started speaking on it. Say something you're trying to get around to was, we were talking about the integrity of an artist. And you were saying, should that integrity be based on a firm social conscience, or should it just be based on what you're feeling? What your honest feelings are? It
should be based on a social conscience if you have one. But if you have any feelings at all, that's really where you start. Starts with your emotions, your feelings. No, I don't think that having a social conscience is necessarily, it's not really basic equipment to make good rock and roll. Matter of fact, you don't even have to be smart to make good rock and roll. I mean, I thought, like, for instance, like Pete Townsend said this thing around the time we did the Muse concerts, and he said the stupidest thing I've ever heard anybody say, which is, one, he was for nuclear power, and that he thought that everybody that was doing the Muse concerts really just wanted to fuck Jane Fonda. And so what he said was, I'm really pro-nuke, but I'm not letting anybody know because I still have hopes of fucking Jane Fonda. So I think that statement right there is proof that you don't have to be very intelligent to make pretty good rock and roll. I don't think that having social conscience, I mean, that's really quite separate from having feelings. I mean, feelings I happen to like stuff that has, I happen to be interested in stuff in music that has social conscience. But I mean, there are hundreds really, majority of songs that I really like, may not. But I may enjoy them because I may put them in a context that way myself. I may provide the social importance to a song. I mean, if you like Statesboro Blues, or if you like, if you like, there's any number of really incredible blues songs that are talking about a man and a woman. But the context of these songs is the life of a black person in the United States, and the life of racism, and a life surrounded by racism and injustice. That goes into your understanding of it. I don't separate the things. The idea of having strong feelings about this life and having social conscience. I'm interested in stuff that has social conscience. I think that right at this particular point in time, it's songs that have a social conscience are of particular value because of what's going on in the world.
An interesting comparison we thought for you is like Sting. Sting seems to be involved in social issues, but yet he seems very to take it sort of in stride. He's sort of almost basking in it. He's really loving it. Whereas in your case, you seem to be more compelled. There seems to be almost some sort of pressure on your shoulders that this has to.
That's an interesting observation. I must say that I think Sting does what he does really, really very well, and it's not escaped my notice that he does it with a certain grace and aplomb, and particularly with he's particularly effective because of it. I realize that there's a danger if one seems too immersed in social issues. There's a danger that you can really repel a large amount of people that you want to reach. And I think that Sting, knows that too, and he's particularly good at communicating with people who maybe only care very little. For instance, he would say at these press conferences for an amnesty, the first amnesty tour, he'd say, look, it can be fun having a dictator for a pal. I mean, a pen pal. Having a dictator for a pen pal. You can actually, aside from all the benefits of, learning about what, really goes on, you just put it in an entertaining way, and he's masterful that way. I admire him for it. Everybody has to approach this life, the best way they know how with whatever their individual talents are.
How about you?
I'm not that comfortable being, compared with Sting because I think of him as I think he's really great.
But then at the same time, I think it's kind of flippant there.
Is flippant?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
But I mean, compared to you, I think that's the
no,
about you.
please.
Yeah.
I think that he's just masterful. I think that he knows that the more serious you appear to take, that the more there's a danger of seeming too seriously, immersed in something, because people would think that they can't do that, and that I don't think it's flippant of Sting. I think that he's very effective, and I think that you have to decide who you're going to talk to. To a certain degree, I assume that people are interested, in these things, and talk to them. And I mean, let's see, that's not really true either, because I found myself trying to. I realize that a certain amount of people are going to hear about this for the first time from me. So you try to make it interesting. You try to put it in a context. And I just don't know that I do it as well, that I always keep that thought in mind that, you just sort of, spark their interest and let them go for it themselves. I always try to compound things and tell them a little bit more than I probably should. But, look, I don't think it's flippant at all, Sting. I think that he's written one of the best songs about human rights and about the situation in Chile, in that song, They Dance Alone. And, the song, Russians, great song, We just have our everybody has a different approach, different way of talking about these things. Like there's a great example of songs that basically have a social conscience but are not wearing it all over the front, if they're interesting.
Current album seems to talk of rather grim issues, and at the same time sort of brims with optimism, hope, and resolve toward you.
That's a good word.
Is that a product of your innate optimism?
Maybe, but I think that that may be true, that I have an innate optimism. The thing is, I think that it's true that you have to have some hope for things to change, or you have no power at all. You have none. Without. I'm going to say something brilliant like, without hope, there's no hope. But what I was saying is you have to believe. The furthest one to have some place to go. You have to have something that you want to see happen, and the belief that can happen. So I think that it's important that while you identify some of the problems, to talk some of the problems, that you know that there's something that can be done about it. Otherwise, it's just crushing. Crushed by the overwhelming seriousness of the world situation.